Hello and welcome to my first Sims 3 build video. I would say if you're new here, but since everyone's new here, welcome to my channel. You can call me Billy. I've been a Sims player for many years and figured why not share some of my builds and the process that goes into making them. I'm not an expert builder by any means, this is just something I do for fun. Any kind feedback, feel free to leave it in the comments. But let's get into it. Today I've decided to start out with a starter home build. It's inspired by a real life tiny home I saw, and I've tried to keep the budget down as much as possible, but it might be slightly over for a single sim. Obviously, this isn't quite as tiny in The Sims as it probably is in real life, but I tried my best. So here we're just starting off the general structure. It's a fairly boring shape on the outside, a little bit more interesting inside with the loft. Trying to go with as much of a cottage style as I can. It has a very spacious bathroom and a very spacious kitchen, but not too much living space. And I'm also building this on a very small lot. It's a 10 by 15, really keeping the size down. So now I'm going through adding windows. It's really a struggle. I'm quite picky, and since I lowered the wall slightly to get that cozy loft feel, it was a little bit hard to find ones that didn't clip above the wall and into the roof. But I did manage to find some in the end that worked perfectly, and the roof also helps cover that little last bit of clipping on the top there at the end. If you can tell by the custom lighting, I'm building in the world Strawberry Acres, but you can place this lot in any world. I'll also make sure to take screenshots for the build in Sunset Valley as more of a default, since Strawberry Acres has some custom lighting. And I want to make sure you kind of get the best idea of what the build will look like wherever you place it down. And a lot of the builds I make are inspired by real houses I've seen, either online floor plans I found or actual physical houses in my country. So you might see some interesting building quirks that might translate over. So here I'm starting on the kitchen, just adding in the counters. As you can see, it is very spacious, as I said. Next we're getting into the dining area. It's very hard for me to pick a table. I wasn't sure if I wanted to use some tiny home custom content, but I am trying to keep custom content to a limit. The less I have to attach below for you guys to download, the better in my mind. But here comes my favorite table, which you'll probably notice a pattern with in the rest of my builds later on. I love that table. It's from the Pets expansion pack. I just can't help it. It's going to end up in so many builds. Now I'm building out the living space, adding in a couple of chairs, a TV, and as an extra special treat, I'm adding in a bookshelf as well. Plenty of things for your Sims to do in this house, despite its tiny size. Now I'm removing some of the floor under the stairs, make it more spacious feeling, and we're moving on to placing the furniture in the bedroom, in the loft. So here we go, chucking in some more furniture. You'll notice I don't go through and add patterns to furniture as I go through the rooms. This will be a bit of a recurring theme in my other builds as well. I just tend to like chucking in my furniture, figuring out where things go first before I settle in on patterns and colours. So now I'm placing the appliances in the kitchen. Not quite the final look yet. And now going into the bathroom. Here's where the struggle begins, because I'm going to start looking through patterns for hours. I believe I did actually cut some of this out. And I'm replacing the floor in the main part of the house again just to keep the cost low, because I realized that starter wood floor is 0 simoleons. So in this bathroom, I'm trying to go for something a little bit different. I'm not a huge fan of the base game tile patterns, so I tend to go for masonry look now. So however many hours as I figure this out, but I'm happy with how it turned out. It's something a little bit different. Now building out the exterior of the house, which will mean more color selection, my favorite. So if you hadn't noticed by the name of this build, it is called the Cerulean Starter. And you know what color cerulean is? Blue. So there's going to be a lot of blue in this build, and it all starts from the outside. So here I'm just doing that. It's kind of got a barn feel to it, a cottage feel. This is also still based off of the tiny home I saw, at least matching the inside that I saw, and kind of inspiring it for the outside. Now I'm getting into the roof placement. And great, we are going back to the inside where I suspect I am about to start picking out the tile pattern to go on the bathroom walls. So I'm using the pool wall and customizing it because it's cheapest and, again, something interesting. I will say there is a great balance between not using a lot of these custom tile patterns on your walls, and even the base game ones, and not letting it look like a subway bathroom or a public bathroom stall, because a lot of the patterns are actually quite muddy, and so it can get interesting trying to make it look like a clean modern bathroom, but I hopefully succeeded. Just trying to make everything match color-wise, and now I am finishing the bathroom. So in here I had quite a think about whether to do a separate bath and shower or just do a combined one, which would have been easier, but I saw price-wise having them separate was about 600 simoleons cheaper, so now I get to figure out how to fit everything in here functionally. And here's where some of the real life building quirks come in, where a lot of my builds will not have a functional mirror in the bathroom because there'll be a window in the way, and that is something I see a lot in real life that kind of translates a little bit too well into my builds. But don't worry, this isn't like the house in Divergent. I promise you there will be at least one functional mirror somewhere in every one of my builds. It just probably won't be in the bathroom. So your Sims can still practice their charisma skill just fine. Still building out the loft. Haven't gotten into all of my pattern matching yet. Just kind of looking at some more decoration. Some rugs, because the floor was looking a little bit too bare. Now I'm swapping it out for the final stove, and I think just some more decorations before I go into patterns. Just building out the lights. Something to note is that all the custom content links and the build download will be in the description below. I'll also have a Tumblr post for it, which will also be linked, and I'll include any expansions and stuff packs used in this build as well. I did say I was trying to keep custom content to a minimum, but I cannot resist a good custom content roof pattern, which I used just then. Yay, now it's color matching time on the inside. I wasn't super happy with how the walls turned out at this stage, so they will change, and until they changed I was not entirely happy with the patterns I picked on the stairs and the counters, but I think it all worked out well in the end. So here we go, a lot of color matching. The main reason why I tend to leave the color changing to the end of my builds after I placed in the furniture is because I do like to drag the patterns around between multiple different items of furniture. So it's a lot easier if I figure it out kind of right at the end and I've got all the pieces down. Some people might choose to do a different way, but this is what works for me. Not 100% sure how I felt about the stove color, but I think what I picked worked the best for me. I felt like white would have stood out too much and I didn't want that to be super blue like it was originally. So now we're getting into the patterns in the bedroom. I sure do hope everyone watching this likes blue, because if you don't, well, why did you click on this video? Probably don't download the house. Although, if you do and you don't like blue, you can always recolor or redecorate it yourself, or just use the build as inspiration. You are fully free to do that. I don't mind if you hate blue and this is the worst thing you've ever seen. So now I'm getting into the patterns on the couches. You'll notice in a lot of my builds, because I'm trying to keep the patterns to non-custom content, there will be a lot of repeats of the same ones I use over and over just because I think they're the best patterns and I really like them. And here I did something really interesting with the rug that I'm quite proud of. I used a pattern I used to adore but haven't used in a while around the edge. You know, as it takes time to load, even sped up, that I've just got too much custom content, especially patterns. But I really like the way the floral pattern sits around the outside of that rug. It's probably something you're gonna end up seeing me doing more builds after this, because it's a new thing for me. Another pattern that I actually really like that I need to use more is similar to that floral one with the lines, is the fruit one. I was always a big fan of it in previous years, but I've kind of forgotten about it, or I just haven't done enough builds that use it. Now I'm finally changing out the interior walls. And I really took the easy way out by bringing the outside in. I don't mind it. I tend to prefer keeping the interior walls a bit different to the outside unless I'm building, you know, a barn, but it's kind of got a barn aesthetic, so I guess it works. Now I'm getting into landscaping, my favorite part. No, it isn't. I hate gardens in real life and in The Sims. I can't do it. Placing down a path. I think probably the thing that I struggle the most with gardens in The Sims is, you know, uniformity versus chaos. I don't want the garden to look too much like I've just cloned everything over and over and it's just in perfect lines and patterns, because that's often not what a lot of real people's gardens look like. And so then I try and make it look a little bit more chaotic, but then I'm like, oh, I'm not sure I like it. So it's a constant problem for me, because I want everything to line up evenly. Just placing down some more flowers and then I'll get into painting some dirt on the ground. My favorite part of landscaping, actually. Making it look like things are actually growing. And there's not just grass everywhere that it's growing out of. But we're pretty much getting into the final touches of the build, just adding in some decor. Again, trying to keep the price down, so a lot of my favorites probably aren't making it in. Also going to be adding in some wall art. I did succumb to using custom content wall art because it was 0 simoleons, and also I just love it. It's typically all going to be by pretty much the same creator, so I'll always make sure to link them below. But here we go. I will be uploading more builds in the future, hopefully, so do make sure to subscribe if you're interested, as we're just finishing this up, and I'll be cutting 2 screenshots after the build finishes. Now just finishing up with some curtains, something that I have a tendency to forget in a lot of my builds, along with lights, but don't worry, I've gone through and replaced them later in any that I did forget previously. Because this is not the first one I'm recording, this is just the first one I'm uploading. So here we go, finishing off the bathroom and cutting to screenshots shortly. Thanks for watching.